Hello, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today.
Givenchy?
Hold on, stop. They spelled my fake.
How Vogue magazine embarrassed a Muslim American journalist and humiliated itself in the process. The second murder of a young woman in Melbourne, Australia in 6 months brings people out to mourn and spurs questions about violence against women. A British woman smashes the record in a brutal endurance race and even has time to stop and feed her baby on the way. And Romeo the frog's about to meet his soulmate after 10 years in Friday's Animals Doing Stuff. Now, you can't have failed to have seen people taking part in the 10-year photo challenge, posting pictures of themselves in 2008 and in 2018 because it's the internet and it's a challenge. Well, now the challenge has morphed away from narcissism into something more serious and interesting. People have started posting pictures like these of the Syrian city of Aleppo, now left devastated by the Syrian war. But other examples include the change 10 years has had on the environment, like this showing the decimation of coral reefs due to bleaching and ocean warming. And this one from Greenpeace, which takes the 10-year challenge and raises it to show Antarctica 100 years ago and Antarctica today. And it is environmental problems that have led the Thai governments to take action in the past few days. Pollution in Bangkok is terrible right now, and authorities there are working to try and make it better. But environmentalists don't think their plan will work.
By spraying the water droplets, it will help gather the particles and cause them to drop to the ground, just like rain that helps clean the smog and pollution. But that's not all.
This is not the way to fix the root causes of air pollution, because it comes from the car engines and burning in public spaces. If we continue trying to fix the problem this way, it will never be solved.
Using the water can to spray water into the sky, hoping that the level of air pollution will be decreased, I think they are wrong, because it proved in China and India and anywhere else. This is not a solution.
From the beginning of March, I believe the levels will fall because the winter weather will be over and the summer winds will come in and we won't have this situation.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things that have caught our eye on social media. Now, a man has been arrested over the murder of a Palestinian exchange student in Australia this week. 21-year-old Aiia-maasarwe was killed around midnight on Tuesday while on her way home. She was on a FaceTime call with her sister at the time, who reportedly heard the attack. Police say the 20-year-old suspect appears to have acted randomly. Aiya's father has arrived in Australia. He says he wishes he could be with his daughter one last time.
She's all the time smile. She loves the people. She have very big opinion, the mind open for everything. She like to study for different culture, different nationality. She don't come with mind, idea from another culture. She respect.
Every woman in Australia, every person in Australia should be able to travel home in safety. I can't begin to think of what I could say to her family. I know what I'm thinking about her attacker. I suspect it's the same thing that all other Australians are thinking today.
The website Buzzfeed is reporting it's spoken to some FBI agents who say President Trump told his former lawyer to lie about his business dealings in Russia, specifically his plans to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. The reporting also says there were plans made for Trump and Putin to meet during the 2016 presidential campaign. The revelations come from agents who've interviewed Michael Cohen. Cohen admitted to lying to the FBI previously and has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. Now, do you recognize this guy? It's the Canadian Prime Minister playing a guitar, right? Wrong! It's an Afghan wedding singer called Abdul Salam Maftoon. And their slight resemblance has had the internet all excited since Mr. Maftoon appeared on the Afghan Star. This is his audition. Now, he says that he doesn't know who Justin-Trudeau is, but if the resemblance helps his career, he's happy. The Democratic Republic of Congo is being pressured into postponing announcing its presidential election results. A winner was provisionally declared last week, but his victory is widely disputed. The African Union want the DRC to wait before confirming a victor and say they will send a high-level delegation to the country to find a solution. Now, this comes as the United Nations says that violence in parts of the DRC in December led to more than 800 people being killed in just a few days.
Now I have to emphasize that 890 is the number of people that we know were actually buried. But there are reports that many others may have been killed and their bodies may have been dumped in the Congo River or they may have been burned to death.
Next, the United States government is still shut down. It's the longest in history. But if you're not an American, you're probably wondering how on earth a government can be shut down like this for so long. Well, here's how.
It's official. The Trump administration now holds the record for the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. But how can a government shut down? The 1974 Budget Control Act is responsible for the shutdowns. According to the act, each year the Congress must agree upon the federal budget drafted by the president. This has to be done before the beginning of the fiscal year, which begins on October 1st. And when they can't agree on a spending bill, funding stops temporarily. The act was introduced to limit the powers of the president, who previously could refuse to spend funds appropriated by the Congress. For instance, Congress has already passed 5 of 12 appropriation bills, making sure that 75% of the government is funded. But the remaining 25% hasn't been passed, leading to a funding gap and a partial shutdown. Do shutdowns happen only in the US? Yes, they do. A shutdown that could lead to federal workers scrambling to make ends meet is unique to the US. In most countries, there are mechanisms to prevent scenarios that would lead to such a deadlock, in which citizens end up paying for political disagreements. For instance, in Australia, if the budget fails to be passed, the government is forced to resign or the parliament is dissolved. The same applies to many other parliamentary systems like Canada, New Zealand or Bangladesh. In countries like Germany, in the case of an impasse, German labor laws don't allow federal employees to be sent home without pay, unlike the case in the US. Currently, 800,000 federal employees, federal parks, among others, are caught in the crossfire over the US President Donald Trump's campaign promise to build a wall along the US-Mexico border. How often do shutdowns happen in the US? Since 1976, the government has shut down 21 times, with the current one being the longest. The second longest was in 1995 under former US President Bill Clinton due to a disagreement over funding for public initiatives. Clinton wanted to expand spending on federal health insurance, education and the environment. The previous 20 shutdowns have only lasted for an average of 8 days and didn't leave federal employees without pay. The frequency of the shutdowns has also increased over the last years, with this being the third time under the Trump presidency. So, are government shutdowns becoming the new normal in Washington?
All right, time to spin around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Friday. The lawyer representing Harvey Weinstein in his rape trial has asked to be removed from the case. Benjamin Brafman tried and failed to get all charges against Weinstein dropped last month. It's not clear why he wants to remove himself from representing the former movie mogul now, and the judge presiding will have to approve Mr. Brafman's withdrawal. Harvey Weinstein is one of a series of high-profile men who have been exposed and accused of harassment and assault and rape as part of the Me Too movement. Mr. Weinstein denies all the allegations against him. Well, this is Jasmine Paris, and she won a 431-kilometer endurance race in 86 hours, smashing the course record by 12 hours and beating a field of both men and women. And as impressive as that is, I haven't told you the best part. She did it while expressing milk for her baby at aid stations. The race is called the Montaigne Spine Race, and it's held in the UK. And that's her baby, Rowan. Okay, let's talk about Noor Tagouri. She's a Muslim-American journalist, and she's in this month's US Vogue, and that's a big deal. Minorities are underrepresented in the fashion industry, but there was a problem, a big problem. They thought she was someone else.
Noor Tagouri is an American journalist, activist, and speaker.
Trafficking, survival sex, and sex work. It's all happening here in the United States.
This is so crazy, man.
She is also part of a documentary series called Salt in America. In 2016, she became the first Muslim woman to appear in Playboy magazine. And now, she made it into the latest US Vogue. But here's what happened when she picked up a copy to see herself in print.
Oh my God, I'm freaking out.
What the? What? Givenchy?
Hold on, stop. They spelled my,
Damn.
I'm so heartbroken and devastated. Like, my heart actually hurts. I've been waiting to make this announcement for months. One of my dreams of being featured in American Vogue magazine came true. We finally found the issue in JFK Airport. I hadn't seen the photo or the text. Adam wanted to film my reaction to seeing this for the first time. But, as you can see in the video, I was misidentified as a Pakistani actress named Noor Bukhari. My name is Noor Tagouri. I'm a journalist, activist, and speaker.
In 24 hours, her post received support from tens of thousands of people. Tagouri says misrepresentation is an ongoing issue.
I feel sick. This isn't the first time this has happened, but this is print. It's Vogue. I was so excited to share this with my younger sisters because 13-year-old me would have been ecstatic to see someone who looked like her in Vogue, only to realize there is so much work to do.
Vogue has since apologized. And Noor issued a correction online.
It isn't always easy, but this is why we keep fighting.
And last up, some good news for a guy who's been called the world's loneliest frog. Now, his name is Romeo, and for the past 10 years, he's lived in a museum on his own in Bolivia. He was said to be the last living Sehuancas water frog until he found his Juliet, or rather, some scientists found a female in the wild and is setting the two up for Valentine's Day. Perfect. Turns out all those years in the museum made Romeo a bit awkward. Apparently, he's fat and shy, so his keepers are worried Juliet may see him and hop it. And that is all from the NewsFeed team. Do reach out to us with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne.